and welcome to YallWest Afternoon Keynote with Brandon Sanderson. We are so excited to have him with us today. We are so honored that he is here to talk to us. And as you all know, Brandon Sanderson is the author of many award-winning books that have sold many copies. He is the author of one of my favorite books, The Way of Kings. He is a Hugo Award winner, and he has hit the New York Times list 15 times, most recently with Oathbringer, that went #1 and was the #1 pre-ordered book on Audible. And his books have been acquired by Fox for Sean Levy's production company, 21 Laps, and they have been published in 35 languages. Thank you so much, Brandon. Yay! Can we have a
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, all of you watching as well. They told us we could bring our cats along and things like that. I have a fantasy novelist pet, so this is Magellan, my macaw. He may or may not be good on the stream. He's 1 year old as of yesterday, so we'll see how he acts. We have plans. If he starts getting squawky, we may have to move him along. But he has a brand new toy that I just gave him that he's going to be playing with. So, afternoon keynote. I actually want to talk to you guys today about a lie that a lot of people tell you. This is going to be a little bit of a downer for a bit, but I promise it won't end on a downer. Plus, you have a lovely macaw to look at if you get bored of me. This is a very common lie. In fact, it's one that we writers tell you a lot. Media in general likes to tell this lie, particularly to teens. A lot of well-meaning adults tell it to you, teachers included. And the lie is that you can do anything you want to. Now, again, I don't want to be a downer, right? It's a pretty innocent lie. You've probably heard it packaged in a lot of different ways. Follow your dreams. Adam. Follow your dreams. Follow your ambitions. They will tell you, don't listen to the naysayers who are telling you things like, oh, you should be careful about that. That's really hard to do. This is the sort of thing that in media we really like to tell you because it makes really great novels, right? Mine included will kind of frame people who are naysayers about following your dreams often as the villains, as antagonists. And we are selling you generally in books an ideal. And that ideal is that you can do whatever you want, no matter what it is, if you just put your mind to it. And it's a lie. It really is a lie. Now, it has some good parts to it. It's meant to inspire you. It's meant to give you hope. It's meant to, help you to overcome and things like this. And I don't necessarily think that's bad. I like that it does all of these things. And my goal isn't to make you feel terrible. I'm an optimist. I like writing books about people who succeed despite terrible odds. Like, that is my whole thing, right? People who find they have hidden talents, who are very determined, who go forward and try to accomplish something great. But I also feel like I need to be upfront and straight with you. You can't do anything. Sometimes determination and grit is not enough. Some things are simply impossible. And even for the things that are possible, luck plays a bigger role in accomplishments than any of us want to pretend. So my goal tonight, yes, hello. My goal tonight is to kind of cut through the aphorisms and cut through all of the, the platitudes, the you can do it, and really talk about doing difficult things and how you actually go about achieving your goals. And hopefully I want to give you some real solid advice on doing things that are very difficult. I've got for you right here a show and tell. This is my first published story. I published this when I was 18, living in Nebraska. And it has a cool story going along with it. You see, I was in an AP class, and one of my professor there in that AP writing class, he knew I was the science fiction nerd, right? He was the person who, I was the person in his class who was reading all the fantasy and science fiction novels. And this was a science fiction writing course, or contest, students only. And he got in his little box, an invitation for his students to submit. And instead of announcing the class, he walked up to me, he set it on my desk and he said, "Brandon, I think this is for you." And indeed, it was for me. I had started writing just a few years earlier. We'll get to how that started with me. But I just finished what I thought was a pretty cool story. And so I submitted it to this contest, and I took first place. My first publication, I won $50 savings bond, very big money, and I felt pretty good about that. Though, true story, the people, the judges of the contest came to me afterward and said, "Brandon, it was a really great story. You did a really good job. Though at first, when we started reading it, it felt really strange to us. We thought you were doing something really avant-garde and whatnot. And then we realized you had just stapled your story backward and submitted it," which I honestly had done. So if you're submitting to contests, tip number one, don't staple your story backward. But I loved this. I went to this convention, found a community of science fiction fantasy fans like myself, and really felt like I was coming home when I went to that con, because my story's a little bit different than a lot of writers. If you haven't heard it before, I was not a reader when I was young. I didn't like books. I felt the books were boring. And indeed, when I was in middle grades, when I was in middle school, I was given a bunch of books that people are like, "Oh, you'll like this one." And it felt like every one of them was about a kid with a pet dog and then the dog died. I swear I read like 3 in a row of that. And I was just not interested in that. I had a really great teacher, Mrs. Reader, or Ms. Reader. It's a true story. And she got me reading a fantasy novel for the first time. She thought, "Yeah, I think you'll like this." And indeed, she matched me to that book really well. And I fell in love with the fantasy genre, and decided I wanted to be a writer right then and there. I can still remember talking to my mother about it. My mother is a wonderful woman. My mother is incredible. She graduated first in her class in accounting in a year where she was the only woman in the accounting program, right? But she's an accountant. And to her, becoming a writer didn't really add up. She was really worried about me. She pushed me to become a doctor or a scientist instead, because I was skilled in some of these things. And in many of the times I used to tell this story, my mother was kind of, in some ways, the antagonist, right? You've seen this well-meaning parent who has a child that has a dream, and the parent says, "Wait. Are you sure about that?" And the older I've gotten, the more I've learned, the more I've realized the wisdom in what my mother said. Because I came out of, that falling in love with fantasy novels with 2 big desires, right? One was to become a famous novelist. And the other was to have a pet dragon. So, speaking of dreams that are not quite possible, that are impossible, I can't have a pet dragon, right? Even as a kid, when I was thinking, maybe we can bioengineer dragons. How hard can it be? Put bat wings on a lizard, we have dragons. This is not possible with our current understanding of science. Maybe one of you will figure it out, but I cannot have a pet dragon. Instead, I have Magellan, who I love quite a bit. He's great. He might even do his trick for you. Let's see if he'll do his trick. Hey, Magellan, yeah? Use the force. Yeah, good bird. If he uses the force, he gets a treat. We'll talk about dragons a little bit more. You might be saying to me, "Okay, Brandon, we know that when authors say you can do anything, what they really mean is, yes, we understand you can do anything as long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics and reality. We get that. We understand that. But becoming a famous novelist, you obviously did it, Brandon. You have done it. You want another one? You have to be told to do it. Okay, use the force. Okay. He really likes almonds. So he tries to use the force all the time to get almonds now. And yeah, it did work out for me. And I don't want to tell you, don't do what I did, right? Like, that's not at all what this is about. This is about me trying to be realistic about what you can do to achieve your dreams. And I worry that sometimes media, even the media I create, goes too far. That we profit off of selling you a dream without giving you the warnings, without giving you the realism, without actually talking about the stakes and the probability. I feel like sometimes we are selling this to your detriment. And so let's start off. I'm going to have three things with you, three pieces of advice for you that I think will really, really help you moving forward to achieve your dreams, whatever they are. But first off, you need to understand something called survivorship bias, right? Survivorship bias is this really interesting thing. It is the way our psychology works. Human beings really want to trust the word of someone who's been successful. Makes sense, right? Successful person knows what they're doing, has been there before you, should have good advice. This can become a fallacy, though. Let's say that we did not know that flipping coins was random, the results of a coin flip. Just pretend there was something we didn't know was random, but it really was. And we had a big coin tossing contest where we got 1,000 people together to flip coins. And we were going to see who could flip heads the most times. And at the end of this, we crowned a victor, right? This person who had flipped the heads the most times. Not knowing that was a completely random event, we might send that person on book tour after they write a book on how to flip coins correctly. We might have them on talk shows. We might have them give inspirational speeches to teenagers saying, follow your dreams. You can be the best coin flipper too. Just follow my patented method. I flip coins and got heads all the time because I ate only broccoli for 10 years of my life. And if you do that, you indeed too can win the coin flipping contest. This is survivorship bias. We don't know how much of what put me right here, right now, was skill, how much was talent, and how much was luck. We can't divide that out. Certainly, all three play a part, and you can control some of those things and not others. This is dour, right? This is dour. It's kind of negative. I warned you the first half would be a little bit negative, but that's not my intention, as I warned you. My intention is to get you to be aspirational and to really believe that you can. I want you to have success. I want you to do it not though with the I can do anything. That's where you start. I want you not even to say, it'll be really hard, but stick in there. That's true too, but I want to take the step beyond what we normally tell you, which are those two things. And I want to try and give you some tools. So let's revise that phrase, the you can do anything. Let's revise it to say what I want you to think instead, which is, I can do hard things. Doing hard things has intrinsic value, and they will make me a better person, even if I end up failing. What does that mean? Well, tip number one, all right? Tip number one is in making goals. I think we need to learn, maybe as a society, but certainly as creative individuals who want to achieve great things, to understand goals, to understand how important they are, but where they fall short. As an example, I teach a class at the local university, how to write science fiction and fantasy. To get into this 15-person workshop, oh, you want another one? All right, can you do your other trick? All right, do dragon, good bird. Dragon is where he flaps his wings. So to get into this class, you need to submit an application and be one of the best writers, one of the 15 best out of the 100+ applications we get. The people who are in my class are really serious about their writing. They have often finished multiple novels. They are really good at what they do. And of those 15, every year, I have one or two who end up going pro and making a living, at least part-time, as a novelist. So that's maybe better odds than people have told you in the past that becoming a novelist is 1 in a million. But these 15 all have the skill and the talent to become professionals. They are all really good writers. And of them, 10% of them make it in the writing field. That's because writing involves a lot of luck. Let's think about this, right? Let's think about an Olympic runner, one of the fastest people in the world. In fact, someone who takes 4th place in an Olympic event, they're probably faster than 99.99% of people who have ever lived, probably with many more nines after that. They are one of the fastest people ever. But if their goal was win an Olympic medal and they took 4th place, they did not win an Olympic medal. Are they a failure because they didn't win an Olympic medal? Well, I guess it depends on how they set their goals, how they think about their goals, how they think about the thing that they're doing. They can't control who they're going to compete against, right? In fact, many people will take 4th in an Olympic event in a year when, if they had competed 4 years before, they might have gotten the gold, just because you can't determine who you're going to be competing against. Do you want another one? Okay, use the force. Use the force. Oh, you're facing the wrong way. You have to turn around. Yeah? Okay. You just want to watch the people. No, you want to get your nut. All right. Use the force. Good bird. Good bird. You're being really good. So you can't control who you're going to end up competing against. I kind of had a crisis of faith about my profession in the year 2002, right? This is where I had been trying to write. I'd won this award, right? I had won the Andromeda 1 student writing competition. And I went to college thinking, I'm going to become a famous novelist. This is my goal. And I spent the next 10 years of my life writing novels. In fact, I wrote 13 novels. This story takes place when I was writing book number 12. None of these had sold. I finished book number 12, and I was submitting these books around to publishers, and I kept getting rejected. The books I'd written that I really loved, books 6, 7, and 8, got rejected by the publisher saying, these are too long, plus they're not dark enough. Everyone wants dark fantasy right now. Can you write something really dark? And so books 11 and 12 in particular, I tried to write like George R.R. Martin. I'm like, well, he's selling. I'll write books like them. And they were terrible, these books of mine. They were awful books. I'm not meant to write books like George R.R. Martin writes books. Or at least I'm not meant to try to chase the market in that sort of way. And so these books were really awful. They were dreadful. And I had this crisis where I'm like, I have written 12 novels, right? You might have trouble paying attention to me with a bird on my shoulder. I apologize. But written 12 novels. And they're pretty good novels, I think, but nobody wants to buy them, right? What am I doing with my life, right? Writing all these novels, having them fail, getting rejected. I try to write what I want. People tell me it's not good enough. I try to write what they want, and they still get rejected. Plus, they're just terrible books. Like, what am I doing? This was one of the most important points in my career because I decided, after a lot of soul searching, I asked myself, why am I writing these books, right? What is the point? Why am I doing this? Is it because I want to be a famous novelist? Yes, it is because I want to be a famous novelist. Should it be that? I think that's a worthy thing to have as an aspiration, but it shouldn't be the main reason I'm writing. I looked at what I'd done and I realized I sincerely loved writing these books. When I sat down to write, everything else faded, still does. And I enter a place of just pure creativity that I love. And I realized at that moment, if I never sold a book and I died, let's be optimistic, at age 105, and I had written 100 unpublished novels, I was a bigger success in that case than if I'd given up because I loved it, sincerely loved writing. And at that moment, my goal changed. My goal changed from being a famous novelist, from becoming a famous novelist, though I still wouldn't say no to that, that came along. My goal became, I'm gonna get better with every book. I'm gonna write the books that I love, and I'm gonna do it my way, and I'm going to acknowledge that simply doing this is good for me, even if it's hard, because writing books is hard. Now, my story has a really happy ending. I sold a novel right soon after that. I wrote book number 13. That one didn't sell. It was actually book number 6 that I'd had a lot of faith in before. It'd gone through a bunch of rejection letters. I'd given up on it. And it ended up on an editor's desk and sat there for 18 months. I thought nothing was going to happen. And that editor eventually read the book and bought it. It was Elantris, my first epic fantasy. At least first one that sold. So fairy tale ending, right? But I think you need to focus on making goals that you have control over. I did not have control over whether I became a famous novelist. I didn't even have much control over whether I got published or not. I have a phrase in the Stormlight Archive. This is the book, The Way of Kings is the book I wrote as book number 13 after I decided that I was no longer going to, chase the market and I was not going to worry as much about publishing. And a central theme of the book, The Way of Kings, is a phrase, journey before destination. I embedded this into the lore of this world because I realized I can control my journey even if I can't always control my destination. The journey is what makes the destination worthwhile, in my opinion. And so I could say, I'm going to get better with every novel. I could say, I am going to keep writing books, even if I fail at it time and time again. That I can do. But I couldn't, for instance, say, I want to win awards, because I don't have control over that. I want to write books that are worthy of awards. That I could do, and I think that I have. Early in my career, there's an award in the science fiction community. It's basically the Rookie of the Year award, right? And I really wanted to win this award. And I didn't, actually. John Scalzi won it. Scalzi became my nemesis, by the way, during that time. Our names are right next to each other on the shelf. We published it around the same time. Everywhere I went, it felt like John Scalzi had gotten there before. Like, I'd go sign books in a bookstore, and there's a bunch of signed John Scalzi books. And it just happened enough times that when we both got nominated for the award, the Rookie of the Year award, I'm like, I'm going to lose to Scalzi, aren't I? And I did. And the thing about that award is you're only eligible 2 years. I lost it the next year to Naomi Novik, who is a fantastic writer. John is actually an amazing writer as well. And I then was not eligible anymore. I can never win that award. It's impossible. I lost it twice, and I'm done. This is why setting your sights on the right things can be so much more valuable than things you don't have control over. Instead of saying, I want to have a pet dragon, I ask myself, what do I want a pet dragon? I want a cool, intelligent pet that can hang out with me, that can talk to me, that can do all these things. And I realized I already had one. At that age, I had a lovebird, my bird Hawk. And ever since then, I've had parrots because I love parrots. That is a goal I could achieve. And I'm really happy that I have people like Magellan. Why are you screeching? You're okay. Okay. You okay? No? You want to scratch? No? You're a little worried? Oh, you just want to get up onto my shoulder again so you can play with my hair. So, tip number 2. Let's move on from that one to tip number 2. Where did I put it. I didn't put it back. I lost it. That's all right. We've got another one here. So, tip number 2. I probably put it in my pocket somewhere, but I have like 3 of those, Adam. So, I'm just going to write this one in blue. Tip number 2, right after your goals. Tip number 2 is learn how you work. All right. There's another kind of lie that people tell you, and I hate this one. I hear it all the time. People will, young writers will say to writers, and this isn't just writing. I hope that this can be applied to whatever your goals are in life, but I know a lot about writing, and I hang in these communities, and people will say some variation on a question of, how do you know if you're meant to be a writer? And the writer will respond something along the lines of, oh, you'll know If you can do anything else in life, you should do it, because being a writer is really hard and being a writer is terrible. And you will know if you have this overwhelming compulsion to write if you're to be a writer, otherwise run away. And I hate this answer. I absolutely hate it because I don't think it's true at all. I think there are some writers who have this overwhelming compulsion, but I think this narrative is damaging. I think that it tells you that, oh, if I don't naturally want to go and do this, if I feel like I want to do it, but I'm not able to, if I fail at it, if if I, for instance, sit down and want to write and I end up playing a video game, that must be a sign that I'm just not meant to be a writer. Well, maybe it is, but more likely you're just human. Being human is all about figuring out how to have done the things you want to have done, right? Most everybody does not want to do hard things because they're tough. I love writing, but starting writing in the morning still many times can be really hard, right? And writing is tough. It just is. And I'd rather be playing the Nintendo Switch. Let's be honest. Anyone who says otherwise, well, maybe they're just of a different sort of mindset than the rest of us. But for most of us, we just have to figure out what motivates us. And this is different for you. You should not feel bad that you have to kind of hack your brain to make yourself do the things that you want to have done. And figuring out what makes you do your work, the things you want to do, is really, really useful in life. Some of us respond very well to sticks, right? If I don't do this, I'm going to be in trouble. Some of us respond really well to carrots. Carrots are, if I do this, I get this nice reward. Some of us respond really well to a deadline, like having a writing group where your writing group is going to read your stories, and if you don't submit on time, you're going to feel guilty about it. A lot of us, that works really well for motivating us. For me, the thing that motivates me most is keeping track of my daily word count. If I make a spreadsheet and I write my daily word count every day, and I get to see that count up toward a goal word count, making a good goal, right? Then I'm intrinsically more likely to do my writing the next day if I've been able to get that sort of ding, that sort of feel that you get from playing a video game where you see your character level up. I've gamified writing for myself. That's how I make myself do my writing. Find out what works for you. Don't feel bad if you want to play video games instead sometimes. Maybe you want to read books instead of write them. You eating my button. Don't eat off my button. Everybody is like that. And you just have to figure out what makes you do what you want to do. It's almost like you have to trick yourself. But more, you just kind of figure out what it is that makes you do what you want to do. All right, Magellan. I know. You want to be on my shoulder. I'm going to get you off there. Come on. Yeah, I know. You're just screeching a little too much. I'm sure that they are very much liking having you along. But be a good bird, eat your nuts, and let me go on with this. So, this is where experimentation is important. Learning what it takes to be successful in the way you want to be successful requires you to try a bunch of different things. Try a writing group. Try not having a writing group. Some people, writing group is terrible for their motivation, for whatever reason. If you want to be a successful writer or musician or athlete or anything else difficult, though, you're going to have to figure out what makes you do the things you want to have done. All right? So let's move on to number 3. Number 3, the last of my tips on doing hard things is to break it down. The book I'm writing right now is one of the sequels to The Way of Kings. It's the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive series. These are really big books. I love big books, and I cannot lie. But it's quite an undertaking. Just for frame of reference, this isn't bragging, this is how it is. The entire Hunger Games series is 300,000 words. The Divergent series is 321,000 words. The last book that I wrote of the Stormlight Archive was 460,000 words, all right? It was 2 of the entire Hunger Games. Or no, it was 1.5 of an entire Hunger Games in one novel. It's a big book. They are really daunting, even if you're me, to approach writing one of these. How do we do this? How do I make it happen? Magellan, what do? I break it apart. Now, you're trying to use the force. Oh, now I said use the force. I don't think I have any more treats for you. Yeah, I'm out of treats. I'm sorry, bud. Oh, there's maybe a little piece of one. Nope. Here, play with this. You really like these. Yes. Break it down. I write a book 460,000 words long, word by word by word. Setting goals and achieving them is often more about breaking that goal into small, manageable pieces than it is about simply sitting down and doing something big, something great, something hard. Wonderful, but you got to be on that journey. You've got to figure out what about that journey you're going to enjoy and how you can have little successes along the way toward what you want to do. And in this, my mother was right. The reason my mother was so worried about me becoming a fantasy novelist is she couldn't see a path toward me doing this. That's the problem with a lot of creative professions, right? These creative fields. Let me tell you a story about my roommate in college. He picked his major by picking the major that paid the most money for an undergraduate degree in the college. It happened to be chemical engineering at the time. He just went down the list. Which one pays the best? And he picked that one. That's what he wanted, the one that paid the most money. And his classes were tough. His classes were really hard. He would get back from classes and be like, man, I got a 60 on that test. And me as an English major, I like panicked. I'm like, 60%? I've never gotten a 60 in my whole life? That's terrible. He's like, no. That was like the 3rd highest grade. I'm fine. This kind of class. Meanwhile, I wanted to be a novelist. And nobody was saying to me what I had to do to be a novelist. My classes were telling me, read these stories, read these wonderful books. Aren't those great? Wouldn't you like to do that? And I'd be like, yeah, how do I do that? They're like, write them. Just write them. Just write maybe. And in some ways that was right, but that is not a very good pathway. It's not a really good roadmap to becoming a great novelist. The way you become a great novelist is you practice a ton. And while my roommate had these huge, massive batches of homework he had to do, I was not given much homework. I had to do it myself. And that's kind of the problem in our system sometimes. Oh, there he goes. He sometimes does this. With creative professions, is that we aren't given a good roadmap. We're just told do it. And just do it is good. But my roadmap was I needed to write 13 novels before I sold one. It's a hard, long road for something that might not have ended up making me any money. And if you're going to do this, you need to be aware of it. You need to be aware that you can't control everything. I often talk about writing in the same way I talk about some of my friends who like to play basketball. Now, we are middle-aged guys. My friends who play basketball are never going to the NBA. But it's interesting. If you tell people I'm writing a book, one of the first things they will say to you is, oh, great, when are you going to sell it? How much money is it worth? And this, I think, gets into us writers, this sort of false sense that if we aren't making money off of what we do, then it has no intrinsic value. And I think it is actually the opposite. Writing has great intrinsic value, just like going and playing basketball, right? I think it's really good for my friends to go play basketball. I could probably do well to join them now and then. It's good for you to write books. It's good for you to get better at writing books. It's going to make you better at expressing yourself. It's going to get those dreams out of your head and onto the page so you can share them with people. It's a little bit like telepathy, writing a story. Getting to share what was in your brain with someone else and then getting to talk to them about it and see how they felt and how they saw the characters. There's nothing else like it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's incredible. And it is worth doing even if you never sell a book, even if you're those students in my class where 13 of them who are just as talented as the others just never end up making it. Well, if they have the right goals, then that's okay. That is my speech to you today. I have a little thing I want to show you at the end, but I have to get Magellan off of me because he will try to eat it. I'll let him hang on here for a minute. Oh, he really wants my buttons. You can't have my buttons. You can't have my buttons. Come on, Bert. Oh, I know. Come on. What? What? Come on. Yep, I know. I know. Taking away the buttons. This is my other piece of show and tell. This is, yeah, you really want to eat this. He loves Legos. This is the first and only Scalzi Award. This was made for my friends the year that I was nominated, but made by my friends, and the year I was nominated for that Rookie of the Year award. They actually went to the Lego store, which was nearby where the award was being held, and they built me a little rocket ship because the awards that are given out at that ceremony look like rocket ships. And then they took these Legos at the bottom, and they went to John Scalzi's signing, and they got him to sign it for me, and then presented it to me at the end after I lost the award. Because they said, well, you lost that one, but you won the Scalzi Award, which actually I am tickled about. I've kept this ever since. I love it. It's a sign that I had good friends, and it's also a sign to me that I can't control how people vote. I can't control how good my competition is, right? John and Naomi are fantastic writers. I happen to go up against them. I don't know if I would have voted for myself against either of them. They're really good writers. It's a reminder of me to focus on the things I can control. So I want to end today talking to you about the concept of hope, just briefly. Hope is a wonderful thing. Hope is what keeps us going when things look dark. Hope is what kept me writing books all of those years. But I want you to learn to temper your hope. I want you to learn to combine it with these things. I want you to take that hope and I want you to put it in goals that you know you have power over. I want you to take that hope and I want you to let it guide you through the difficult times of figuring out how your psychology works, because it isn't easy to figure out how your own psychology works, and you're going to fail a lot. You're going to end up playing, the Switch instead of writing your book a few times now and then. You're going to end up with all these things where you're like, maybe I'm not meant to be a writer. Maybe you're going to have a moment like me where you're like, what on earth am I doing? My mother was right. I'm going to be begging for beans by the side of the road. I'm never going to sell any books. That hope got me through it. The hope is important. But at the end of the day, I really want you to take that hope and I want it to drive you to look at your goals and say, all right, what is my actual path to victory? What can I do to accomplish these things? And everyone tells me my potential is limitless. All right, what am I going to do today to achieve those goals? And if you do those things, you will have success, even if the things you can't control prevent you from winning the gold medal because you're the fourth best at something that is really hard to do and that you should feel really proud of yourself for. Keep going. You can do hard things, and it is difficult but worth doing. And I have been Brandon Sanderson. This has been Magellan, who has been mostly a good bird. Yeah, mostly a good bird, except he really wants my buttons. Thank you guys so much for listening to this random rant of mine. Thank you so much for going to Y'all Stay at Home, or not going to it, as the case may be. And thank you very much for reading. I hope to see you guys around many more times in the future. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know. You just love buttons.